Breakfast on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
10 minutes before 8, let's dive more into this then moment of pride that we'll hear later today from the Prime Minister as he, Boris Johnson, announces the end of all remaining coronavirus restrictions in England. I remind you, of course, through devolution. The United Kingdom, different countries move at different paces. Paul Scully is Conservative MP and Small Business Minister and indeed Minister for London, joins me now. What is the data then that's persuaded the Cabinet and the Prime Minister to make this move? Good morning to you, Minister.
Morning, Nick. Well, look, the Cabinet will be meeting later on today. Sage rightly said that the pandemic isn't over. We can see that case numbers are going down, that hospitalisations and deaths that obviously trail those case numbers nonetheless are going down. And so it's important that we get the balance right because we're learning to live with COVID. It hasn't gone away. We're learning to live with it. And so this is the time that we can start talking about how we return to personal responsibility rather than government diktat. The Prime Minister's always said he doesn't want those restrictions to last a moment longer than necessary.
And what's the situation as regards testing, Minister? What do you understand, testing of individuals? What do you understand the situation to be there?
Well, in terms of testing, that's still under review. So there's no decision that's been taken under that. The Prime Minister was right when he said yesterday that we clearly can't go on forever paying £2 billion a month for the testing regime. I mean, you could only just imagine what other things that money may be spent on, but not least, as I say, if you've got other illnesses and making sure that we can cut through some of the backlog.
So when will that end? When will that expenditure?
Well, that's under review, Nick. That's part of that conversation that the Cabinet will be having later on today, but no decision has been taken, so we'll see what happens.
But that will only apply for England, won't it? Presumably the tests will still be made available to our friends in Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland.
Well, the restrictions that we are underway at the moment are English restrictions that we're talking about.
Right. So we would still be funding tests in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
Well, as I say, that will be treated as a separate conversation, I think.
All right. Just moving to the idea of the pace. What if someone who's listening to this and is told they need to return to the office but is nervous about returning to an office? What rights do they have, Minister?
Well, I think if it's there's two things. If they really think that there is a detriment to them, then the employer has a statutory duty of care to their employees, as they would with any other illness, as they would with any other situation. And so I'd recommend an employee in that situation, if they genuinely fear of their health and their well-being, to go to the ACAS website, have a look at the guidance that's on there, and that will clearly set out their rights and their follow-up if they need to make a complaint.
Okay. Minister, would you say it's fair to assert that the Conservatives have always been wanted to be seen as the party of low taxation? Is that fair?
I think that's fine. Because that's the part of personal responsibility.
Okay, perhaps we could discuss figures from the government's own budget watchdog, which shows the planned national insurance rise will cost firms more than all the 8 new business taxes introduced over the past decade. These are figures from the government's own watchdog body. You're no longer the party of low taxation, are you? Businesses should have no confidence in the Conservatives anymore, should they?
No, I don't agree with that. Clearly, what we're trying to do with the national insurance levy is two things. First of all, we're trying to spend that money
cost
on
businesses a fortune,
getting rid of the backlog, but also then tackling the social care that's been issue that's been long-standing and unresolved to date. But the
I thought it was to tackle the NHS backlog. Is it social care?
It is originally. No, it is for the next couple of years. But then it's to be used for that social care levy. But if you look at the way that the national insurance levy is structured, it's top 15% of all earners will generate around 50% of the revenue that's raised by it. 6 million low earners won't pay any money at all, and about 40% of businesses that have got employer liabilities won't be affected at all. So it does depend on the businesses that you're talking about, and it's obviously something that's hitting
but it's going to hit
better off people,
staff.
The broader shoulders.
It's going to hit care home staff.
Well, look, as I
say, they don't
have
the broadest shoulders, Minister.
No, because as I say, there's more than 6 million of the lowest earners won't pay anything at all within that. So that's why, as I say, it's on a progressive measure.
The 40.
But nonetheless, the wider point, though, you talk about tax. Clearly, we are in a situation that we've had £408 billion go out of the door to support people, to support our businesses.
5 million people who currently pay no income tax will pay 20% on part of their earnings should their salaries rise just in line with the cost of living. Roughly 9 million people, possibly in total, could be affected. And you still pretend that the Conservatives are the party of low tax. You're not. We voted for Churchill. We've got Clement Attlee with Boris Johnson, haven't we?
No, I don't think that's fair, Nick. I think, as what I said, we've just put 408 billion
more taxes
pounds
than
out
the
the door.
last 10 years, Minister.
But we've also, in terms of economic support, that's 408 billion pounds represents something like about 3 times the normal NHS budget that's gone out the door. Extra money that we just didn't think, when we were there in the election in 2019, that was just around the corner of that national pandemic. And that's why we've got to steady the ship and then move back down to what we all want as Conservatives, for those of us a Conservative government, is lower taxes and more personal responsibility, trusting people to keep their own money in their own pocket.
OK, well, it doesn't feel like that on that. Let's move to another aspect. As Minister for London, you'll be aware we need to get folk back into the city. Why is it necessary that it would appear the passenger locator form, travellers arriving in Britain, with all the restrictions that will go, it is reported that will stay? If so, why?
Well, that's, as far as I understand, that's, first of all, we clearly want international travel to come back, especially in the centre of London.
This should go now, shouldn't it, with all the other restrictions, Minister?
Well, I think that's, it's a conversation that we need to have in terms of being able to track the variants of coronavirus, to make sure that we still have a handle on exactly what is happening as we start to peel back some of the other surveillance.
With the one hand, you're easing all restrictions. No one need wear a mask. We have our moment of national pride. And on the other hand, you want to keep track of all variants of people arriving in the country.
Well,
what
I'm
the
saying,
hell
Nick,
is going on?
No, what I'm saying, Nick, is first of all, no decision has been made on passenger locator
But what are we
forms.
keeping track of? So when these people arrive from Thailand or China, are we going to track them? And then they just run up and down the high street without their masks on?
No,
but we've got their home address.
No, Nick, what I'm saying is that first of all, no decision has been taken on that. But what we will have, as we peel back the restrictions, clearly we need to have a handle on what is happening in terms of variants and a sort of light touch view on case numbers, and so there will be surveillance.
How will it give you input on variants?
The passenger, I'm just coming back to the fact that the passenger locator form, no decision has been taken on that anyway. So that will be part of the wider discussion with the Transport Secretary as to what happens with that.
Yes, but just lastly, how will it help track variants?
Well, I'm just talking about a wider view of the surveillance, but that's why that's part of a wider conversation. That's why, in terms of the virus, the surveillance of the virus, not of people.
But how will you know the person has a virus?
Well, no, I'm just saying that no decision's been taken on it, so I can't speculate.
Do you agree with me that it needs to go? Let's look at this lastly in this area. Do you agree with me that the PLF, passenger locator form, if all the other restrictions are going, that has to go? Do you agree?
What I would like to see is a way of making sure that we can understand what is happening with variants that are coming into this country. So how that is formulated, how that is constructed, that's a conversation that needs to be looked in the round.
One other major issue as a representative of the government I must get you on is Ukraine. I've got a listener here, Pam in Worcester Park. Why is Boris Johnson unlikely to be involved in a summit between Putin and President Biden? Is there any progress? Minister.
There's look, I don't know what the makeup of any summit. What the Prime Minister has done is that he's been in Munich. He's been talking to the European Security Conference there about the need to keep together as the West. The Foreign Secretary was obviously in Ukraine last week, announcing the new trilateral relationship with Poland and Ukraine. The Prime Minister has been putting defensive weaponry into Ukraine as well to make sure that we can shore up their defences. What the Prime Minister has been absolutely adamant about is that NATO needs to stick together, needs to collaborate and work together as it has been doing, and it's good to see President Biden, President Macron, and the Prime Minister working in their individual ways to tell Vladimir Putin, take the diplomatic route, retreat back from the border, because otherwise the consequences will be horrendous.
Let's hope he's listening. I'm grateful for your time. Thank you. Small Business Minister and London Minister Paul Scully appearing here on LBC Where with the time at 8 o'clock. News is next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.